Last week, a woman in Ohio posted a photo of her grocery receipt. She didn't complain. She didn't blame the government. She didn't ask for sympathy. She simply wrote, "We bought less than we used to, but somehow spent more." Within a few hours, thousands of people responded. Not with advice, not with political arguments, not with budgeting tips, just 2 words. Same here. That might be the shortest conversation happening across America today, and maybe the most honest. You don't really notice inflation when you walk into Costco. You notice it when you stop shopping the way you used to. You reach for something, then pause. You compare 2 brands you never bothered comparing before. You quietly put one item back, not because you can't buy it, but because you tell yourself, we don't really need it today. The receipt is only the last page of the story. The story started long before you reached the checkout. Economists measure inflation with numbers. Families measure it with conversations. The conversation that used to be, let's go out for dinner, becomes, maybe, next weekend. The conversation that used to be, let's take the kids somewhere, becomes, we'll see. Nobody records these moments. No statistics track them, but almost every family feels them, and that's what makes this different. Most people aren't mourning luxury, they're mourning simplicity. They're mourning a time when ordinary life didn't require so many calculations. When buying groceries felt like buying groceries, instead of making 20 small decisions that quietly follow you home. Here's the strange part. If someone asked, "What's wrong?" many people wouldn't know how to answer. Nothing terrible happened. Nobody lost everything. Life simply became heavier. Not because of one giant problem, but because of 100 tiny ones, like carrying a backpack. One stone doesn't matter. Neither does the second or the third. But keep adding stones every day and eventually you stop asking, why is life expensive? You start asking, why am I so tired? And maybe that's the real conversation America is having right now. Not about groceries, not about inflation, but about the quiet weight of ordinary life. The strange thing about being human is this. We rarely notice change while it's happening. We notice it only after it has already changed us. Think about your own life. 5 years ago, what felt normal? Maybe meeting friends without checking your budget first. Maybe saying yes before asking, how much is it? Maybe buying something because you liked it instead of because it was on sale. None of those moments felt special, because ordinary never announces itself. It only becomes valuable after it disappears. Psychologists have a name for something called loss aversion. Simply put, losing something hurts more than gaining the same thing feels good. Finding $20 feels nice. Losing $20 feels worse. Our brains are built that way. But here's the part that's even more interesting. We don't only experience loss through money. We experience it through possibility. The possibility of saying, sure, let's do it, without hesitation. Sometimes, that's what people miss the most. There's another reason ordinary life feels heavier. Every day, we make thousands of tiny decisions. Should we renew that subscription? Should we replace the old dishwasher? Should we take a vacation this year? Should we eat out or cook at home? Each decision seems small. But psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more choices we carry, the less energy we have left for the things that actually matter. Maybe that's why some people don't feel physically exhausted, they feel mentally full, and yet there's something fascinating about memory. Ask someone in their 70s about their childhood. They rarely talk about prices. They talk about people. My grandfather always whistled while fixing the fence. My mother sang while washing dishes. My brother and I chased fireflies until it got dark. Nobody says, gas was $0.35 a gallon, and that's why I miss those years. Isn't that strange? The bills paid for those memories, but they never became the memories. A few years ago, researchers studying happiness found something simple but powerful. People quickly adapt to things they own. A bigger television soon becomes just another television. A newer car becomes the car you drive every day. But shared experiences stay emotionally meaningful much longer. Not because they cost more. Often because they cost almost nothing. A walk after dinner, backyard barbecue, watching fireworks from the hood of a pickup truck. Those moments don't impress social media, but they quietly build a life. That's why this conversation isn't really about inflation. Inflation is the headline. The real story is attention. What are we still noticing? Because the world is very good at telling us what's getting worse. The news reports problems. Social media reports comparisons, advertisements report what we still don't have. Very few things remind us of what is still quietly working. The neighbor, who waves every morning. The cashier who remembers your name. The dog waiting by the front door. The teenager who still sits at the dinner table for 10 minutes before disappearing into their room. These moments seem ordinary, which is exactly why they're easy to miss. Here's a thought. Imagine someone gave you 2 boxes. One contains every grocery receipt you've ever had. The other contains every family photo you've ever taken. Which one would you save? The answer is obvious. Yet every day, we spend more time worrying about the receipts than creating the moments that end up in the photographs. And maybe that's the quiet trap of adulthood. We become so busy trying to protect tomorrow that we accidentally stop living today. Not because we want to, because we're trying to be responsible, and responsibility is honorable. But life has a gentle sense of humor. It often turns today's ordinary Tuesday into tomorrow's memory. Without telling us it was important, there's something we almost never realize while it's happening. We always think the important moments will look important. We imagine they'll arrive with celebration, with music, with applause. But life doesn't work that way. Life whispers. One day, a father drives his daughter to school. She gets out of the car, slams the door, and runs to meet her friends. To him, it's just another Tuesday morning. Years later, he won't remember the traffic, he won't remember the price of gas, he won't remember what he paid for groceries that week. He'll remember watching her run away without looking back, and he'll wonder, when did she grow up? One day, a family sits around the dinner table. Nobody says anything profound. Someone complains about work, someone asks for more mashed potatoes, someone laughs at a joke that isn't even very funny. An ordinary dinner. The kind people assume they'll have forever. Until one day, they don't. History is filled with extraordinary events, but our lives are mostly built from ordinary evenings, and that's the irony. We spend so much time preparing for the big moments that we barely notice the small ones quietly becoming memories. The world will always give us reasons to worry. There will always be another headline, another election, another crisis, another bill to pay, another prediction about the economy. If we wait until everything feels certain, we may spend our entire lives waiting. Somewhere tonight, a child is asking a parent to come outside for 5 minutes. Somewhere, an older couple is taking the same evening walk they've taken for 30 years. Somewhere, someone is calling their mother, without knowing it will be one of the last ordinary conversations they'll ever have. None of these moments will trend. Nobody will post breaking news about them, but they are the quiet threads that hold a life together. And maybe that's the biggest surprise. The economy can shape our schedules, it can shape our choices, it can even shape our worries, but it doesn't get the final vote on what makes a life meaningful. People do. Love does. Time does. Maybe tomorrow will be easier. Maybe it won't. None of us gets that promise. But every generation before us lived with uncertainty too. They still fell in love. They still raised children. They still planted gardens. They still gathered around dinner tables, believing there would be another ordinary day. Years from now, you probably won't remember this week's grocery receipt. You probably won't remember the price of eggs, or milk, or gasoline, but you may remember who sat across from you tonight, who stole a French fry from your plate, who rolled their eyes at your joke, who was still there. And one day, you may discover that the ordinary life you spent worrying about was quietly becoming the life you would miss the most. So maybe the question isn't, why? Has life become so heavy? Maybe the better question is, what is still worth carrying? and perhaps the answer has been sitting at your own dinner table all along. Life, unscripted, we may not know what tomorrow brings, but we can choose to live well today.